Welcome to Reflect on This. Hello, I am Johnny Henshaw. Many years ago, I discovered that I could use my passion for research and analysis to also discover important truths from God's Word and then apply them to my life in tangible ways. So if you want to learn more about the ways and nature of God in practical ways that you can actually apply to your life, keep listening. And check out the show notes to find additional info and resources. So let's get started. Please join me today as we reflect on this. Last year, my wife and I heard an excellent Easter message. The speaker talked about the fear-filled Friday when Jesus was crucified, as well as the glorious Sunday when it became clear that Jesus had risen from the grave. But he also focused on what he called the silent Saturday of that weekend. He helped us to imagine how the disciples were feeling on that Saturday. God was silent as to the events of the previous day. The disciples must have been thinking, did we misunderstand? Was he really not the Messiah, the Son of God? What do we do now? He is dead. Are we next? I am sure that Saturday was a long day of waiting for answers. As I reflected upon that Saturday as a waiting period for the disciples, I realized that the Bible is full of examples of waiting periods for God's people. God spoke to Abraham and told him that through his descendants, all the peoples of the earth would be blessed. Then Abraham waited for decades before God spoke to him again and foretold of his wife Sarah's pregnancy and delivery of their long-awaited son Isaac. Later, God spoke again to Abraham and told him to journey to a place and sacrifice this son of promise. There were 3 long days of waiting and intense emotion for Abraham as they traveled to that spot. Then God, at the last minute, provided a substitute sacrifice. Noah spent about 100 years building the ark as God had commanded before the flood came. Only then did he fully understand the need for this massive project. Noah and his family waited a total of 11 months on the ark before God told them to disembark. Moses sensed God's call on his life to lead the children of Israel, but when he was 40 years old, he impulsively killed an Egyptian who was mistreating an Israelite, and he had to flee for his life to the wilderness of Midian. There he spent another 40 years of waiting for God to renew his call on his life. The children of Israel spent 400 years in slavery in Egypt before God finally raised up Moses to lead his people to the promised land. There were centuries of God's silence between the last of the Old Testament prophets and the birth of Jesus, as the children of Israel waited for the promised Messiah. In all of these examples, God's people were in a waiting period. Some were very long chronologically. All were extremely hard. What did God do in each of these waiting periods? He strengthened their faith. He taught them patience and dependence upon Him. He prepared them for what was ahead. He accomplished significant things in their hearts. And God will do the same things for us in our waiting periods. David is another good example. He was anointed king long before he ever sat on the throne. Between the promise and the fulfillment, there were years of waiting, trials, and refining. But in that waiting, God was shaping him into the leader he needed to be. And today is no different. Here's the big idea. God still sometimes uses a waiting period in our lives for His purposes. In these waiting periods, God accomplishes significant things in our hearts. I am reminded of this description of the righteous person from Psalm chapter 1. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. Notice that the righteous person is compared in verse 3 to a tree that yields its fruit in its season. We all experience the seasons of life: fall, winter, spring, and summer. When we are in a waiting period of life, that is, a winter season of life, it is comforting to remember that God will bring spring in due time. During the winter, He will bring things for our ultimate good. Winter can seem dark, lifeless, cold, with little growth. But spring is a time of warmth, sunshine, awakening, and fresh growth. The coming spring is our hope to help us endure the challenges of winter. What is the prerequisite for experiencing spring? Delighting ourselves in the presence of God and reflecting and meditating upon the Scriptures throughout the day. And the most important time to reflect and meditate upon the Scriptures and to enjoy the presence of God? During the winter seasons, the waiting periods of our lives. Today, I encourage you to reflect on this.